On this Friday night, fighting the fourth wave. Grim signs of what Canada could be facing this fall as Alberta reverses course, bringing back public health measures and paying people to get vaccinated.
We have left no stone unturned, and yet we have the lowest vaccination rate in Canada.
Facing a tough fight, the Liberals sharpen their campaign strategy, while the NDP pushes to boost seats in Quebec with a province-specific platform. President Biden gets an up-close look at the catastrophic damage from Hurricane Ida. With waters receding, the urgent calls for funding to help be better prepared. And the spectacular swims that landed a Canadian Paralympian in the record books twice in one day.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It is not a position anyone hoped we'd be in, but as we head into the Labor Day long weekend, new federal modeling shows a resurgence of COVID-19 in Canada. And unless more people get vaccinated fast, infection rates could rise higher than they've ever been. The Delta-driven fourth wave has case numbers rising rapidly. Vaccines do work and have slowed hospitalizations and deaths. It is the unvaccinated who are now filling up hospital beds. In the last week, there were an average of 1,200 COVID patients in hospital, more than 440 of them in ICU. Right now, about 3,400 people are testing positive every day. And if we continue on the same path, Canada could see up to 15,000 cases per day by the end of September. That would overwhelm our hospitals.
If we want to avoid what we experienced in the second and third wave, especially with all of us, going back inside, with the fall and school and the colder weather, let's get our vaccination rates up. We have that window of opportunity. It's never too late, but let's get going.
One province in particular is driving up the numbers. Alberta has the lowest vaccination rates and the most active cases in the country. Nearly 13,000 people there have active COVID infections right now. Today, Premier Jason Kenney, who has laid low for weeks, emerged along with Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health. Kenney reversed course, reinstating a province-wide mask mandate. Starting tomorrow, masks will be mandatory in indoor public spaces, though not in schools. And the government is going to pay people to get vaccinated.
If you just haven't gotten around to it, for the love of God, please get vaccinated now. And if you do, we will now pay you $100.
More on Alberta in just a moment, but first, the big picture about COVID-19 in Canada. Jamie Maraucher has our top story tonight.
Canada's Public Health Agency says the window to avoid a troubling trajectory of COVID cases come fall is closing.
The moment you get people back indoors to access all those important, essential things that we need to do, we will see accelerations.
Putting school, businesses, and our social lives on the line again.
No one wants to go back into as you say, lockdowns.
But strong restrictions are not off the table, and the solution is the same one it's been for months.
Would you like a COVID vaccine today?
More vaccines.
That's why, people are saying we need vaccine mandates, so that we can keep universities, schools, places of employment open.
The announcement of vaccine passport programs in BC, Ontario, and Quebec have helped boost COVID vaccination bookings, but some provinces have plateaued. 77% of the eligible population is fully vaccinated, but as Dr. Teresa Tam pointed out, at 63%, 18 to 39-year-olds are lagging behind.
We're looking at certainly over 80% coverage in that eligible population as fast as possible.
Setting a perhaps unrealistic deadline of Labor Day Monday.
It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, the people that don't believe in COVID or are afraid of the vaccine and they're not getting vaccinated. Those are the people that are going to end up, getting COVID.
New cases among unvaccinated people are now 12 times higher than among the fully vaccinated. A number of experts say we can still control, but it's now or never. Jamie Maraucher, Global News, Toronto.
In Alberta, ICUs are now 95% full and scheduled surgeries are being postponed. The new restrictions announced there today include that indoor mask mandate and a ban on alcohol sales after 10 p.m. in bars and restaurants. And unvaccinated Albertans are strongly urged to limit indoor social gatherings.
I know that this is disappointing to some who have started to move back into their office. some that have planned large social events. These steps are the least intrusive things we think are needed, and they're temporary.
$100 gift cards will be given to people who get vaccinated. Premier Kenney was asked what kind of message that sends, why the province is rewarding people who have been holding out while putting others at risk. Here's how he responded.
I wish we didn't have to do this, but this is not a time for moral judgments. This is a time to get people vaccinated. We have done everything we can, left no stone unturned, made it as easy as possible. We have left no stone unturned, and yet we have the lowest vaccination rate in Canada.
Critics say much more could have been done and that it was a mistake to lift all public health restrictions July 1st, and that vaccine passports would incentivize people to get their shots. Kenney is resisting them. Earlier this week, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford, who also opposed vaccine passports, reversed his position. The day they were implemented there, the number of vaccination bookings in Ontario more than doubled. Vaccine passports are also in place in Manitoba now as it grapples with a fourth wave. Manitobans are now required to show a vaccine card or QR code proving they're fully vaccinated before accessing many public spaces, including restaurants, gyms, movie theaters, and concerts. Next Tuesday, the province will also reduce large outdoor gathering limits from 1,500 people to 500. On the campaign trail today, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau used the topic of vaccine passports to attack his Conservative rival. David Akin is traveling with the Liberals and joins me now. David?
Well, Donna, with the Liberals now trailing the Tories in several polls, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is now sharpening his attack on his chief opponent, Erin O'Toole. And Trudeau's main line of attack Friday was to contrast the Liberal vaccine mandate policy.
We'll ensure that everyone 12 or older on a plane or train is fully vaccinated.
With the policy of O'Toole and the Conservatives.
Now, Erin O'Toole has said he would rip up this commitment on vaccines. I think Canadians know that's precisely the wrong choice at the wrong time.
Trudeau took on O'Toole on that score in the first French language leaders debate Thursday night. Liberals were pleased with their leader's strong performance, but Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet also had a strong night. And unless the Liberals can steal some of those BQ seats, there really is no path to the majority that the Liberals were hoping for when they called this snap election. Donna.
Okay, David, thanks. The party leaders were tested in a 2-hour French language debate in Quebec last night, a province with some highly contested races. Mike Couteur is traveling with the Conservatives.
Well, Donna, Erin O'Toole's performance in last night's French debate wasn't spectacular, but it also wasn't a repeat of 2019, when then Conservative leader Andrew Scheer fell on his face. Now, in this case, avoiding defeat might be a victory in itself. Avoiding major missteps and playing it safe may sum up the Conservative campaign so far. Often sticking to his insulated studio setup in Ottawa, the Conservative leader has held few rallies across the country. Most have been inside reception halls, safely away from potential protesters. Even while announcing his plan to tackle gang violence, O'Toole appeared Friday in a hotel instead of the streets of Montreal, where there has been a sharp rise in the number of gun crimes this year. Now, one issue that continues to dog O'Toole is his lack of clarity on what he'll do with the daycare deals the Trudeau government inked with a number of provinces before the election, notably Quebec. He has been asked point blank, will he tear up those contracts with the provinces if he's elected Prime Minister? O'Toole continues to be non-committal.
We will deliver for all families support to make sure they have access to childcare wherever they are, and more support for families in the lower incomes. We will also build collaborative relations with the premiers.
Not answering that question could be a problem for the Conservative leader as the party tries to court votes of young families in the final 2 weeks of this campaign. Donna?
All right, Mike, thanks. The NDP leader spent another day in Quebec offering a platform specific to that province, a sign how intent the party is on trying to win more seats in Quebec. Abigail Bimman has a reality check on the NDP's hopes in La Belle Province.
Personalized Punjabi poutine truck in Montreal, a debate, and then day 3, a platform drop in Quebec City.
They want to send a strong message to nationalists in Quebec that, you know, they are not going to centralize everything.
The platform reiterates much of what's in the national plan.
This isn't a plan to respond to Mr. Legault. This is a plan to respond to Quebecers.
But it clearly answers Quebec Premier François Legault's laundry list for those who want to be Prime Minister. Singh is offering more money for immigration and an increase in health transfers.
Our first commitment is to reverse the cuts brought in by Harper that have been maintained by Justin Trudeau.
The strategy to go directly to Quebecers, I think, will pay off, because at the end of the line, I don't think anybody in the streets talks about jurisdictions. They want help for their issues.
In 2019, the NDP lost all but 1 seat in Quebec. A big roadblock was Bill 21, Quebec's law banning religious symbols.
It remains a challenge, of course.
Singh repeatedly dodges the question of how much Bill 21 and racism dogs him 2 years later.
I don't want to make anything about myself.
Stressing voters now know him better and like what they see.
They need to work extra hard to convince those that are willing to consider voting for a man who's wearing a religious symbol.
The party talks about picking up between 4 and 10 seats here. Experts say that's optimistic, but they also point to current positive momentum, and even picking up a couple of seats would be seen as a win, doubling or tripling the party's current standing in the province. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Quebec City.
The Royal Canadian Navy has ruled out disciplinary action for senior officers who joked about sex during an official Zoom call. The Defence Minister, Harjit Sajjan, ordered a review of the incident in March after Global News reported that the military had ended its internal investigation without speaking to all of those involved. In a statement, the Navy did say that the allegations demonstrated the sexualized culture that the Royal Canadian Navy must continue to confront, and that the trust must be re-established in those affected. The American president gets a first-hand look coming up, his promise to help hurricane-ravaged Louisiana. The cleanup is continuing across much of the northeastern United States after the record flash flooding there. At least 45 people are known to have died in the disaster that affected 5 states. The process of assessing the damage is only just beginning. Jackson Prosco is in Philadelphia. Jackson?
Donna, the receding floodwaters have revealed billions of dollars in damage and the need to spend billions of dollars in the future to harden cities and towns against storms like Ida, which are only expected to become more frequent and severe.
This is just the beginning of a cleanup that will take months.
We lost so much stuff. Majority of this is going to go in the garbage.
In the places hit hardest by Ida, the floodwaters came so fast they damaged or destroyed almost everything they touched.
There was so much water and was so forceful that it kicked the door open, went into the loading dock area, kicked the wall out.
The record-setting rainfall had nowhere to go, inundating subways and freeways and homes, where people drowned, unable to escape, including a 2-year-old boy in New York.
That's the scariest thing I've ever thought of, is to have water flood a room and then you not be able to open the door that gets out.
In Louisiana, where entire towns were wiped off the map, officials warn it could take a month or more for power to be restored. President Joe Biden toured the damage Friday and promised to help rebuild and recover.
It seems to me we can save a whole lot of money and a whole lot of pain for our constituents. If when we build it back in a better way.
Ida was a storm for the history books, but certainly not the last chapter, offering a preview of a future full of catastrophic weather events.
Things that we were told are once in a century are now happening regularly. But bluntly, they're also getting worse.
Oh my God!
In the last 5 years, hurricanes have caused an estimated $400 billion in damage in the United States. The true toll of Ida, both in dollars and in lives, may not be known for weeks. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Philadelphia.
Swimming and sprinting to the podium. Still ahead, Canada's latest Paralympic medals. That's Canadian Danielle Doris after taking the gold. The 18-year-old from New Brunswick won the women's S7 50-meter butterfly event, and she broke the world record twice in one day, first in the qualifying heats and again with her gold medal finish. And on land, sprinter Marissa Papaconstantinou raced to her first medal for Team Canada. The 21-year-old from Toronto won bronze in the women's T64 100-meter final. She set a new personal best of 13.07 seconds. Canada now has 20 medals at the Tokyo Paralympics. And here's some news you can use, or at least dance to. ABBA is making a comeback. Nearly 40 years after breaking up, the Swedish pop group is releasing a new album, Voyage, it's called. It has 10 songs and drops November 5th. But the first two singles are out now. Here's one of them.
I still have faith in you. I see it now.
Okay, well, not really danceable, but I'm sure the other ones will be. The music video gives fans a sneak peek at the ABBA avatars that will take to the stage for a digital concert series. Wild. Global National will be back in a moment.
Disruption is creative.
Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery.
Disruption is destructive. Disruption is opportunity.
People here in the square who have a whole new hope, and they're so eager now.
And it's exhausting.
The thing you want to do as a reporter and as a journalist is to bear witness. So I guess you could say journalists are sort of drawn to disruption. Well, that's a clip from a documentary airing next week, Disruption, 20 Years of Global National. Yes, it has been 20 years since this news broadcast first went on the air, 20 years today, in fact. I wasn't in the anchor chair back then. I was a foreign correspondent for NBC News based in London. It was this guy who launched Global National all those years ago. Kevin Newman is with us from his cottage in Ontario tonight. Kevin, how are you?
I'm in a log cabin in the middle of the woods, so I'm really great, actually.
Sounds ideal. Hey, Kevin, take us back to 2001. You went on the air with a brand new newscast, not knowing that 8 days later, the biggest terror attack on American soil would take place. How big a challenge was that?
Oh, Don, it was a huge challenge. I mean, we'd barely been together for a week when 9/11 happened, and there were all kinds of challenges of trying to get across the border that day with a brand new team and a brand new newscast. But we rose to the occasion, I think. It was a terrible few days, those of us old enough to remember, and it was stunning. I mean, those Twin Towers that collapsed had most of the transmission towers on it. And so when those towers went down, our ability to report what was happening in Manhattan was also severely hampered as well. I had just moved from New York City to start anchoring Global National, and it was personal to me. I knew people in the towers. The city had been my home for the last 10 years. And so it was a very difficult day. But what it did do to a young newscast was it forged us. And I think it made us better than we would have been because we were so tested, and it was a day that I think all of us who went through it will never forget.
Yeah, it changed. Well, it changed the world. It's not an overstatement. Kevin, we've both reported from Afghanistan. I know you know that Western journalists can't function there without translators and fixers. You've been working hard to get Afghans out of the country. What has that been like?
Oh, it's been frustrating, as you know, Don. I mean, these relationships that are forged in disaster zones or in conflict zones are really tight. And what translators and fixers do for journalists, for soldiers, for aid workers, is they are the conduit to the culture that we visit, the languages, and they help keep us safe. And, you know, the war in Afghanistan was very much part of what happened after 9/11 and ended up, it turns out, being that 20-year arc. Some Afghan interpreters were able to get out. I've been working, volunteering with a group of soldiers to try to get the rest of them out. But as you and the viewers well know, that's not an easy task now.
The whole story is absolutely heartbreaking and has caused sleepless nights for so many people. Kevin, I want to talk to you about some advice you gave me when I took over this job from you. You said the relationship that matters the most is the one that we have with our viewers. And I really took that to heart because it's so true.
Well, I mean, even as we're talking now, we're thinking about the impact our words, the choices that have been made by your team and previous to that, my team made. It is a very intimate and important relationship. And more important than that, I mean, the credibility of the words that we speak and the stories that we choose matter. And respecting the viewer, I think, Donna, as you always have, and you know, I've watched the last 10 years, and you've kept that very much alive and center. That is the highest responsibility I think that any journalist has, is understanding that we are there to serve, and we are there to protect in some ways, and we're there to verify truth.
That's sure what we try to do, and it's a privilege doing this job. I know you felt that too, Kevin. And what I want to say, the way I want to wrap up, is really we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for our loyal viewers. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to you, Kevin. Catch some fish out there.
And I want to say it was really fun collaborating with you on the documentary as well. You were one of the very few people in journalism that I hadn't worked with, and it was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Kevin. And you can watch Disruption, 20 Years of Global National on September 10th right here on Global, or online at globalnews.ca/Global National. And that is Global National for this Friday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada was taken near Grand Bank, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching. Robin Gill will be at the anchor desk this weekend, and I'll see you next Thursday from Badek, Nova Scotia, ahead of the federal election. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.